Hello and welcome to the Find Focus podcast. Today we talk about how to work smarter and become super productive with Sharon Danzger. And hello, Sharon, and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Martin. It's great to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background in productivity?
Sure. I guess I would say I started as an undergrad in college with being very focused on time management. I was the kind of student that never missed a deadline and never pulled an all-nighter. My friends didn't love that about me, but when I graduated, I went to work in financial services for about a decade. And while I was there, I earned my CFA designation. I earned a master's degree in real estate finance, going part-time at night, as well as a couple of insurance designations. And I guess I share that with people mostly for two reasons. One is I have this love of learning that has never gone away. And the other is that I know what it feels like to have a lot of pressures on your time, whether it be from friends or family, work, school. And so I've always sort of sought out small strategies that could help me get more done in less time. I left the workforce to raise my kids. I had 4 kids in 6 years. I like to think that I've always been super productive. And interestingly enough, from staying home with my kids for a number of years, I learned a lot about flexibility and resilience, which is really important when it comes to productivity. And then at the beginning of 2006, I decided to start my own company. And my focus has always been on helping individuals to find small strategies that are easy to incorporate into their lives, kind of taking this concept that seems to elude most people of feeling like they have some control over their time, and breaking down the research and information that's out there into easy, digestible, small bites that people can incorporate into their lives by changing small daily habits so that ultimately they can get more done with less stress.
That's awesome. Going back to your college time, what do you think made the difference between you and the other students who are typically like really busy the night before the exam or something like that?
I would say it comes down to planning. When I would know what my work was and plan it out, I would actually use what is now referred to as time blocking on my calendar, even as a student, and block out periods of time to study for specific exams and to get specific work done. And if I did not procrastinate on things, it meant that, this really for college students, if you're a full-time student and you're not also working, there can be a lot of time available to you. So you have some choices. You could spend the time sleeping really late, playing some video games, watching movies on Netflix, or you could say, I'm going to get my work done, and then I won't have the stress or the guilt of not doing my work and just enjoy my free time.
Yeah, makes total sense. I developed my own productivity planner, and I notice whenever I fill it out daily, I'm super organized. But if I, for some reason not able to fill it out, I'm disorganized and do not get things done. What do you recommend for people to use to plan their day or their week, and how do you approach planning?
So I think it's a combination of things. Everyone is sort of focused on email. I think for many people, their email drives what they do, which I think can be a mistake, because if you're constantly driven by your emails and that drives how you spend your time, it means that other people are dictating your priorities. So email is a piece of the puzzle because very often tasks are assigned to us through email. But using some kind of task manager, I think, is really helpful. I very often will ask when I do training programs in a company, how many people use a handwritten to-do list versus something like just a simple Excel spreadsheet or one of the many apps that are out there. I personally use Todoist. I've used it for many years and I love it. And even the free version is very robust, although the upgraded version, which I use, is something like $30 a year. It's very, very inexpensive. So, the idea is to really use that to-do list. And if it's handwritten, it's fine. A lot of people will tell you that the process of writing things down helps them to remember. One suggestion I make for those who are really committed to a handwritten list is to get into the habit of each day just snapping a picture on your phone of the list. Because if the list gets lost, it's, that's just a terrifying thought, right? Because now you've taken all of the burden of trying to remember your tasks out of your head and put it on paper. If that paper gets lost, where do you even start? So having a picture of it on your phone is just a backup. For people who are willing to use technology, I would say rather than having it be kind of clunky with Excel or Word or notes, it's better to use an app that helps you manage the priorities. And I also think it helps you to see if you have too many things due in one day.
Yeah,
right? You could just keep adding to the list, and it's really frustrating at the end of the day if your list is just about as long as it was when you started.
Yeah, I recently listened to Tony Robbins, and he talks about having your outcomes first, and then the purpose, and then your action plan, basically. So
right.
Otherwise, you just add tasks to your list. But yeah, maybe even if you manage to get to cross out all your items, you will not feel fulfilled.
Right, and we could keep ourselves really, really busy doing things that don't help us to achieve our ultimate goals, for sure.
So you also wrote a book about productivity called Super Productive. So what was your purpose for writing the book?
So, I read everything I can get my hands on, especially around productivity and also, related topics. And I was reading a book, and as I'm reading through it, I thought, first of all, most of the information in there was just really familiar to me. But I also thought it makes it seem so much harder than it really has to be. And, people ask me, well, what makes you different than everybody else out there helping with time management and productivity? I think it's the accessibility of the information. The people that I work with are really, really busy. They're also really, really smart. And so I trust that if I can offer them something, a small strategy that isn't so hard to implement, they're far more likely to actually stick with it. So if you take something like mindfulness meditation, there is a ton of research out there that shows that mindfulness can help increase your cognitive abilities. It helps your working memory. You sleep better. It reduces symptoms of anxiety and depression. I mean, I can go on and on. It's incredible. It even helps to boost your immune system. So, people who are very experienced with meditation might suggest starting with 15, 20 minutes a day. I think that's a huge commitment. When I started meditating, I said to myself, okay, I really want to give this a try, because clearly there's a lot of scientific evidence to support and, validate that it's worth doing. But I can't commit to 15, 20 minutes a day. It's too easy for me to say, I didn't have time today. So I thought, well, what's the period of time where I really have no excuses? And I started with 2 minutes. And for 2.5 years, it was me and my kitchen timer for 2 minutes. And then a friend of mine who is an expert in mindfulness said to me, oh, you've been meditating every day. What app do you use? I had no idea that there were guided meditation apps. And so once I started that route, it was much easier for me to sit longer without feeling so antsy. And, now I meditate a minimum of 10 to 15 minutes a day, and it's fine. I could have never maintained this habit if I started out there. So taking things and making them into these small habits that you just simply can't even justify not doing, I think is really helpful.
Yeah, I think I talked about this in my very first episode, where I interviewed a PhD who's in psychology, who's also creating a habit builder to track this and make sure to visualize the progress of how deep the habit is already in you, and how motivated you are. And that was great. And one thing, talking about mindfulness, I think I read one book from Chan Meng-tan, one of the first employees from Google, and he recommended to even just start with 2 conscious breaths per day, and that's all he advises.
Yes, absolutely. Make it so easy for people so they can really access it and feel the difference. And I think that even the 2 breaths a day helps people to recognize that though taking deep breaths actually engages your parasympathetic nervous system. So it reduces all of the stress and anxiety associated with the surge of adrenaline and cortisol we get when we're under pressure. And so that deep breathing actually counteracts that and helps you to calm down and think more clearly. So just 2 deep breaths can be really, really powerful.
Yeah, going back to your book, who's your intended audience and who should read the book?
That's a great question. Um, it's terrible. They tell you should always have a very specific market in mind. And I have found that the people, that have read it and gotten back to me that they've loved it the most span a very wide range of ages and what they do. From a 17-year-old high school senior who told me he read my book twice, and each time he reads it, he gets more out of it. To people in their 50s or 60s who tell me that there's a strategy in there that changed their life. So I think if the book really appeals to somebody who's open to the idea that small changes can have a big impact, and they're open to finding, of the 120 strategies in the book, one at a time that speaks to them. Because I think there's also some danger when I teach a 90-minute or half-day workshop and I'm throwing out so many ideas. I really do try to caution the participants, don't try to do them all at once. Just pick one. The biggest change happens when you do one small change at a time.
Yeah, I just remembered when you were talking about this, I'd always try to do so many things at once and then would get overwhelmed and then basically do nothing and start the process all over again every few weeks. And now I just committed to doing, for example, this podcast for my company and doing just one per week. That's a schedule that I know I can stick to, and then just go with it. And I'm already noticing, just sticking to this for a couple of weeks, I'm already making a lot of progress.
That's
So
great.
so about your book, do you have any feedback, or what's your favorite story that you heard about a success story of somebody reading your book?
Well, there was one woman who told me that this simple. I had a discussion with her about some of the strategies, and one strategy that she took to heart was this idea of finding your window of peak performance, like the time of day where work comes most easily to you. You can get the hard work done. You can enter into a state of flow where you're completely in the zone. And she was struggling with something that was really challenging. And our tendency as humans is when something's really hard, we don't know where to start. It's something we don't want to do. We procrastinate, right? It's just human nature. And so she would be procrastinating. And what would happen is at the end of the day, she would decide, now I have to sit down and do this. And it would just be as bad an experience as she thought it would be all day long as she was putting it off. But when she thought, okay, if my window of peak performance is really in the morning, if I take that hard work and tackle it then, it'll come more easily. She said it changed her life. She couldn't believe the difference, that one small change in how she managed her time, what a difference that made.
That's awesome. Can you share a couple of more tips from the book that would really help people immediately, or where should people start, in your opinion?
I think it's very personal. Everyone struggles with different things, but I was in thinking about this call today. I was trying to think of, if I had to pick my top 5, what would those be? So I would say one of them is as simple as, a lot of people, when I say to them, how do you plan your day? They'll say, well, when I come into the office in the morning, I take, look through my email, my to-do list, I figure out what to do. And I propose to them, what would happen if instead of waiting until the morning, before you left work in the evening, you spend 10 minutes, check through your email, make sure anything urgent was responded to. Go through your to-do list. We all, find ourselves at the end of the day, there's still stuff on the to-do list that was supposed to get done. So we have to kind of reprioritize and reassign a time for each task. And then look at your calendar for the next day. Is the list of tasks you have for tomorrow realistic given the meetings and other commitments you already have in your day? And if not, readjust so that you're not setting yourself up to fail. And then the last piece of that is most jobs include a piece that you can't predict. So every day at work, there are the little fires that need to be put out. And there is actually some consistency very often to that. So, for some people, it's an hour a day that they pretty much have to spend putting out fires. For the CEO of a company, that might be 6 hours of his day because there are certain decisions that only he can make. So I ask people to start tracking, how much of their time is spent each day on unexpected yet expected things, and include that in your planning. So if you're working a 10-hour day, if you fill all 10 hours, the 2 hours of fires you have to put out is going to throw you off and something won't get done. So anticipate, basically expect the unexpected. And when you do that planning the night before, it helps you sleep better because your mind isn't racing with what am I doing tomorrow? And if you wake up and, we're in a global economy now, if you wake up and something happened overnight while you were sleeping and now there's a crisis facing you, it gives you a much greater ability to take that crisis and reprioritize your work, because you know exactly what your priorities are when you left the office the day before. So you can take the new piece of information and you can fit it into your puzzle of priorities and address it accordingly, instead of just being completely reactive, like, oh my God, here's a crisis, I have to handle that first, when maybe that might not be the highest priority.
Yeah, reminds me of the quote, no battle plan survived the first contact with the enemy, but there's still a lot of value in planning. Even
Yes.
if your plan does not work out, there's still value in planning.
And another quote, Eisenhower said, planning is everything, plans are nothing.
Yeah.
Right? It's the planning process. Or man plans, God laughs. I mean, there's a bunch of them. But I think that's where the flexibility and resilience comes in. Because if you have a plan, you also have to recognize the plan's going to change.
Is there anything I have not asked you about productivity hacks or something like that, or any other tips that you would like to share with our audience?
Well, so I would say one of my other favorite tips is around multitasking. So I think your, find focus product really, it really helps with that. We are in a very digital world. I think the notifications, like you think about computers, and I think all of the email platforms, what is the default is that you will get a notification when a new email comes in. And I think that harkens back to a day, which it's hard to believe, we needed a reminder to check our email. I don't think anyone needs a reminder anymore to check their email. So one of the easiest things that people can do for themselves to help them maintain focus is just turn off the notifications. So I have gotten some, feedback from people who work in transaction environments like investment bankers or lawyers, like I can't turn off my notifications. And in some environments, they need to have those notifications on. But I usually urge people, take a look at your particular situation. Even if it's not that you can't keep the notifications off all the time, when you're looking to do deep work that requires your full concentration, to the extent you can limit the number of distractions and interruptions, you will get better work done in less time with less stress.
Yeah, I love Carl Newport's book, Deep Work, and I think he covered a lot of the strategies you shared with us during the interview as well. So do you see any other overlooked opportunities for people who work maybe from home and not in the office?
Well, for people who are working from home, I think it's important to create some structure to your day so that there is some delineation between work and play, or you can find yourself either working all the time or playing all the time. So creating some structure and using time blocking in your calendar so that you assign a time to a specific task helps people get more done. And if possible, to have a designated workspace, I think is really helpful as well.
Yeah. Do you have any role models for getting more productive, or which are the people you follow to get information and input from?
Well, certainly the biggest impact on me was my parents, who were definitely super productive. They were very involved in careers and volunteer work. And I am one of 4 kids, all of the driving, we didn't have cell phones, it was like a well-oiled machine. So they really were my initial influence. And then since then, I just read everything I can, but it's not always specifically about productivity. Like we spoke about mindfulness, which I think is really, really connected to productivity, as are a lot of areas in positive psychology. And so, I recently earned a master's in positive psychology from Penn, and I really try to incorporate that into my work a lot as well.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah,
like one
like
of
one
the
of the
best
best
books
books
I
I
probably read was The Ultimate Sales Machine, and it has a really short chapter about productivity. And there was one like you have to plan and stick to the plan and defend it with like utter determination, and then just go and then create systems that will automate your workflow basically.
Right. I mean, it's hard. You think, oh, productivity, it's easy. Just, put your head down and do your work. But there's so much more that goes into it. It's really about our behaviors and how we change our behaviors and how we stay focused. And so it's not as easy as it seems on the surface. And I certainly recognize that when I'm working with people. It's a process and everyone has to find their own way, the self-regulation, the discipline. I think there's been a lot in the press going back to that marshmallow test that was done many, many years ago with the kids, like could they wait and not eat the marshmallow? And if they waited, they'd get a second marshmallow. Well, the same is true in so many aspects of our life. Can you resist the chocolate cake because you want to fit into the dress in a smaller size, in 2 weeks' time? It's putting off your instant gratification today for a longer term goal. And I don't think the struggle with that is going away anytime soon, but maybe there are small little hacks that can help us along the way.
Yeah, and in the end, I believe willpower is really like a muscle. And there's another great book called The Talent Code. And yeah, the more we do things, especially if they are new, we just create a myelin in our brains, which basically wires the neurons and the pathways for the neurons. And that just builds over time with deep learning and making mistakes and correcting mistakes. So there's no way around this if you want to learn and get better at a skill. Like
Absolutely.
there's especially if you want to master a skill. So any last thought you want to share?
I think that's pretty much it for today.
Okay.
But it was great chatting with you, Martin. This was fun.
Yeah. Can you please tell people where to find out more about you and what you do?
Oh, sure. They can go to my website. It's controlchaos.org. So controlchaos.org. And everything's there. I'm also on LinkedIn, Facebook. Find me anywhere. Twitter, Instagram.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for the interview, Sharon. It was great to
Thank
have
you.
you on the show.
Have a great day.